Okay, look, that's not a ridiculous thing to
This is the
say.
caliber of player
What
that
I'm
we're
saying
dealing
right
with.
here
Is the facts. I am presenting to you the facts of the matter.
Oh, this is going to be fun. "10,000 years can be such a crick in the neck." Welcome back to Eric on the Call, your weekly sports digest and discussion on 98.7 Roar Radio, WPCZ LP-FM at the top of the hour. It has been a minute since we've been here together, and that unfortunately stopped me from dragging. I got to do this at the top. It's been itching at me for so long. It stopped me from dragging the Phillies after their loss in the first round. After a year's worth of trash talk and chatter about, a 5-day layoff won't affect us. What happened? What happened to your unbeatable offense? What happened to Harper, Schwarber, and Turner? What happened to those guys, huh? Are we going to talk about them? Yeah, no, they're done. They're on the couch. They're in Cancun now. Francisco Lindor and Mark Vientos beat the brakes off of the Phillies. They took them for a little dog walk, and now they're playing for a chance to go to the World Series against the billion-dollar baby Los Angeles Dodgers. All right, that's enough. That's enough for the Phillies right now because I just couldn't let it slide. It was eating at me all for the rest of the week. Oh, my goodness. Whew. As I said, though, the Mets are playing for a shot to go to the World Series, as is L.A. Now, L.A. was supposed to be in this scenario. They were supposed to be here. But that won't stop their fan base from thinking that their team, that includes the highest paid player in American sports history, as well as another individual who is one of the highest paid pitchers in American sports history, they think that they're the underdogs. No, for the love of Matt Kemp. LA, embrace the villain role. I am begging you to. Embrace it. It won't matter at the end of the day. Look, be the big bad Dodgers. Be, Mookie Betts. Be Shohei Ohtani. They're world beaters. Be the villain. You aren't the Sandlot here, guys. Please, for the love of goodness sake, stop acting like you are the underdog, which you aren't. You definitely aren't. On the other side of the coin, you have the Yankees and the Guardians in a battle of David versus Goliath, a real battle of David versus the Goliath. And through the first two games, the Yankees have really, I don't want to say dominated, because in game two, they should not have won that game. They had very sloppy play. There were errors on the Guardian side. They were thrown out on the base paths like a bunch of nincompoops, right? So I think Cleveland really put themselves behind the eight ball, especially entering this evening as they will play in Game 3 of the ALCS. They've really put themselves behind the eight ball, but now you have 3 games ahead of you in Cleveland to deal with, and you just got to win. If you want to win the series, I do think that the Guardians have to win this evening. A first-year manager, a very young lineup, a rotation that is Tanner Beebe and friends and company, especially now that Alex Cobb is done for the rest of the year. The bullpen is very good, though. We're going to break that down later on in the show. Then we talk about the NFL. The NFL, we see the NFC North become a titan of a conference. Oh, my goodness. All 4 teams have at least 4 wins. Of course, that includes the undefeated Minnesota Vikings, which I've had to sit for since September because I really thought they were not going to be good this year. And look, let's talk about Dallas. Dallas might need to add an extra letter at the end of that name because, man, oh man, does this team blow. It's a one-dimensional team on the offense and the defense. They can't run. They can't stop the run. And after a straight-up disrespectful beatdown at the hands of the Lion, the same questions that usually permeate in January and the offseason, well, they're a couple months early. The Cowboys have not been able to get it done in the regular season to this point, which in usual fashion, that's where they excel. That is where this team is able to really flourish themselves. They have not been able to do it. And that includes, they think that they're facing the world beater Browns, right? They beat Cleveland by just a feather of points. And it has Nick Sirianni yelling at the crowd, thinking that he just won the Super Bowl or he's trying to prove people wrong. Nick, you were expected to beat the Cleveland Browns, who have a generationally awful offense with MVP Deshaun Watson, right? This is a team that you're supposed to beat. Don't act cocky. It's just, that was sad. That was sad by the Eagles. Look, I called this at the beginning of the year. Nick Sirianni's got to go. Philly has still not scored a point in the first quarter. They just have not. So Philadelphia is in trouble, along with the Dallas Cowboys. The Jets played London, lost to the Bills, showcasing some bad passing and some Hail Marys, some play in general. And Aaron Rodgers, I think you can see it now. Him and his receivers, they're not on the same page at all. How do you fix that? Oh, you trade for Davante Adams. That'll definitely help the coaching. That'll definitely help the defense. Yeah, trade for Davante Adams, guys. Now you're playoff contenders. So Adams heads from Las Vegas all the way back to the Jets, back to Aaron Rodgers, and I guess that hamstring's fine. I mean, he walked to the airport okay, so I guess Davante Adams is ready to go. He'll be ready to go and be set to play with Rodgers once again. Excuse me. College football. We will see a matchup that we've been circling for a very long time. It is the showdown of the SEC. The Texas Longhorns will face off against the Georgia Bulldogs. It's a big test for both of these teams. Speaking of Texas, this is a dynamic squad all the way around. They're itching for a shot at the top dog in college football. I would still say Georgia is that top dog. They're still the team to beat. Even if this isn't the world-ending, world-beating Georgia Bulldogs that we have seen in the past, they're still a formidable opponent, and I think they're going to be tested very much because, look, Texas is coming for their crown. The Bulldogs have to protect their crown. This is just very much, we've seen this scene play up in so many different sports, right? So I think this is a big test for both of these two squads. The Georgia Bulldogs really need to wake up, or they're going to risk to falling to 2 losses, which is of course going to ruin some SEC hopefuls and chances, but it might also lead into playoffs. I mean, you don't want to go in with 2 losses on your record. And Georgia, like, again, seriously needs to wake up. And also, I didn't get to make fun of Philly in the MLB, and I didn't get to make fun of Alabama. Oh, tied. You lost to Vandy? Vandy? Oh, my goodness. That is bad. Right after Georgia, you lost to Vandy? Oh, it was a beautiful sight. I know Nick Saban was sitting in Kellen DeBoer's office like the principal after that one. And Bama, they didn't even get any better. They didn't even get a pep talk from Nick, if that even happened, because they came up. They were at home versus South Carolina and came up nearly short. They were almost beaten by South Carolina at home. Again, I want to stress that this Bama team has some serious identity problems to figure out before they even think about playoffs, because I really don't know if they know who they are at this point. The SEC's top teams have been brutally underwhelming this year. So do we turn to the Big Ten? Do we turn to Oregon? Is that how we're looking right now? Because right now, 1 and 2 is Texas and Oregon. We got college football talk coming up right after our first music break, and it is getting time for Halloween. And this song right here is about a phantom, all right, but maybe not like a ghost or a ghoul phantom. Maybe the phantom of, it might sound corny here, Lost Love. That's right. Gorillaz are one of the most prolific bands and influential bands of the past 24 years, and here they collab with Black and Elton John on the Pink Phantom of their 2020 album Song Machine. So again, here is Gorillaz with the Pink Phantom on 98.7 Roar Radio, the student voice of Piedmont University. Welcome back into Eric on the Call. Eric Evanson, your host, here with you. Just getting out of our first music break. That was the Pink Phantom featuring Elton John and Black by Gorillaz. We're going to start off with the CFB. All right, let's break down the top 10 first off. Texas, Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, UGA, Miami, Alabama, LSU, Iowa State, and then Clemson. There's your top 10. There's your top 10 by AP ranking. I believe there was some flips in the coaches poll. I think UGA was a little bit higher in that regard. Either way, there's your top 10 there, and let's talk about last week's matchup between Oregon and Ohio State. Oregon handed Ohio State their first loss of the year. Old man Dylan Gabriel. Man, can I even call him old? We're about the same age. Does that make me old? Oh, my goodness. He was excellent against Ohio State. And he won that QB war. Oregon had all the explosive plays that evening. They went up. They destroyed the big bad Buckeyes. And I say destroyed. It was a close game. But look, they had every single play bookmarked, dog-eared. They knew what was coming from Ohio State. Now, is Oregon that type of team all the way? They're 6-0. I mean, look, you got to start thinking about them at some point. And I'm not going to lie. I came into the year thinking that Ohio State was going to be a lot better than they are. They have not shown me that this is what this team is. I thought, they went out. They actually, it's weird to say in college football, but they spent money this season bringing in a bunch of guys. But one of the main problems with Ohio State that I looked over at the beginning of the year was Ryan Day. He has not brought in a championship since coming into the organization, since coming to the school, and he is 7-7 versus top 25 programs. 7 wins against teams here and there that you don't really respect all the time, but against your perennial guys like Michigan. Of course, they beat Michigan this year, but Michigan was overrated coming into this year without their head coach, their QB, and maybe without some cheating. But for me, whatever. But Michigan, Mizzou, Georgia, and now Oregon have all beaten Ohio State. So is Ohio State really just merchanting off of these lower tier teams and not beating the ones that they really need to? I mean, I'm not going to call them merchants because, again, I do think that there's a lot of talent on this squad to carry them to a title. I remember I said that this was a team that I think is going to be hoisting a trophy at the end of the season. They haven't looked like it. Their record may say otherwise, but they haven't looked like world beaters, right? They haven't looked like they can go out and beat the big bads of the world. And I don't even consider Oregon to be a big bad, even if they're number 2 right now. They're 6-0, and they'll be facing Purdue. So maybe you can call that 7-0. It could be a trap game. I don't know. But Oregon had their number in this game, and Ryan Day, he comes out of it, again, with another blemish on the record, and there's something that you can't do, and that's blame the officials. Look, man, you just can't do that. Your first immediate thing as a coach, optics-wise, is never to complain about the officiating. Unless it is a very, very blatant call, which I don't know if there really was. I mean, there was the 12-man loophole, but again, that's a loophole that was exploited by Oregon. I mean, good on them to know the rule book. But if it's nitpicks and nitpicks, yeah, that makes sense. But the first thing you do as a coach, you either give credit to the other team or you give credit to your guys. But a lot of what Ryan Day was doing was complaining about the officiating, and you just cannot do that if you're in that position of being a head coach of an organization, of a school that is supposed to win titles. It's just not, you can't be doing that. The other big game, actually the big game, not other. This is the one that's coming up that everyone's talked about for a very long time, the one that I've circled, because Georgia actually had to play competition this year, which is a reason they've looked the way they have, and that's the reason they're 5-1. The Longhorns and the Bulldogs are on a collision course. Look, let me say this right now. I think Texas is the best team in the country. I really do. I think I've thought that since about week 3. I thought UGA was still very strong, but I don't think that Texas was being beaten here. Texas is dynamic on both sides of the ball. They have stars on both sides of the ball, which is crazy to say, but this is something that they've been building. Again, best team in the country right now, number 1 in the poll, but don't write off Georgia just yet. They won back-to-back championships for the reason. They won 28 regular season games in a row for a reason. There's still a lot of talent on this roster, and even if the talent that brought them back-to-back titles and brought them those 28-game win streaks isn't necessarily on the team anymore, there's still a lot of talent. You have Trevor, you have Carson Beck, who I have always been a little bit out on, never been as bullish on Carson Beck as some would say, but he's still a solid QB. You have good defensive players. They're young, but they're good, right? There's a lot of young things about this Georgia team that I like, and this might just be an off year for them where they just have to let the young guys grow. But that's when Kirby Smart steps in. That's when Kirby Smart has to step in and make these young guys built for the moment. It's a hard thing to do, but that's what you have to do. So let's look at the game. Let's break it down, what I think is going to be the keys here. UGA comes in banged up. They've been banged up for a couple weeks now. But this has to be a big day for the O-line. I mentioned I'm not as bullish on Carson Beck because he is bad when he's out of the pocket. And once that pocket collapses, I don't really know what's going to happen. You saw it against Alabama a couple weeks ago. You saw it against Kentucky a couple weeks ago. And I would say Alabama's defense is a more explosive than Texas's, but Texas's is a lot more consistent and strong than Bama's is. And I don't know how long Carson Beck's going to last there. So it's up to the O-line to really hold them back, hold back the Texas defense. You got to give him time because he is talent. He does have arm talent, but you have to give Carson Beck time because this Longhorn offense don't play. They're here for blood, and they want you. The defense is averaging, less than a touchdown against opponents, less than a touchdown an offensive scoring against them. The run game has to be as good as it was against Alabama for Georgia. The run game was very consistent. Carson Beck was the one. Carson Beck in the pass was really the thing that killed the Bulldogs in that game versus the Tide. That needs to be the offensive key here. You got to control the ground. For the defense for Georgia, you got to stop Ewers. You got to collapse on them. You got to collapse on them quickly. I don't know if they're going to be able to. Like I said, this has been a very young defense for Georgia, and I don't know if they're built for this. I mean, senior Quinn Ewers is going to keep building his Heisman, keep building his draft stock case for it, and this big Georgia game, this is huge for him. This decides if he goes, 1 or 4 in the draft, right? And Ewers, I think for him, he needs to hug the sidelines. I think that's where he's going to excel. Because if you put it in the middle of the field, Georgia's going to have a better opportunity to mess with your passes. They're going to have a better opportunity to intercept. But if you hug the sidelines, I think Ewers and the Longhorns have a big offensive game ahead of them. And again, the run game for Texas is going to be good too. Because look, Georgia's run prevention struggled against Auburn. They struggled against Auburn. Are you kidding me? And now this might be like a hangover loss that Georgia had versus Auburn because they didn't play as good. I don't even think they played as good against Mississippi State. Again, this is not the same Georgia team we're talking about here. They're a little bit, hobbled right now. I do think there's some intangibles that go in UGA's favor, though. They've been there before. They've seen what kind of competition they've come up against. I mean, look at Alabama. That was a different Georgia team we saw versus Alabama. Alabama brought out the best in Georgia, and likewise, Georgia brought out the best in Bama. Who's to say that can't happen again versus Texas? Who's to say that this team figures out and says, dang, this is a big game. We got to wake up, boys. At the end of the day, you look at a lot of what Texas has and what Georgia doesn't have at the moment, and it sways you towards Texas. I'm going to give this one to Texas. Again, this is a tough matchup. I can see a world where Georgia pulls this out simply because they have that veteran leadership at the helm in Kirby Smart, as long as he doesn't shove any more players. I still don't know why no one has spoken up about that. But either way, this is going to be a very, very physical game. It has prime time. It deserves prime time. Make sure you tune it in on Saturday. Alabama at Tennessee is going to be one that I talked about a couple weeks ago. Tennessee has looked okay. Their offense has been really good, but again, they haven't really played anybody. Alabama is going to be the first one that they really play. It's going to be at Tennessee, so that'll be a great watch. Bama needs to come in, continue to take care of business. They almost fell, like I mentioned in the introduction, to South Carolina last week, so they need to make sure they're continuing to plug along and continue to be good. And again, they got to figure out the identity. They got to find out what this team is really going to be. Oregon faces off against Purdue, who is not great, but this should be a pretty easy win for Oregon, but it also could easily be a trap game for them right after the big Ohio State win. You don't want to come out looking hungover, but, either way, Oregon should move to 7-0, and depending on what happens in that Texas and UGA game, they should either move up or stay the same at that number 2 spot. Notre Dame plays against Georgia Tech in downtown Atlanta, And I bring up this game because I really want Tech to win because Notre Dame comes in ranked at 12 and they don't deserve to be there. Notre Dame always comes in ranked every single year. They are ranked high and they always stink. So I want Georgia Tech to beat them. So if you can hear me, Georgia Tech, please help me out here. Lots of great action on the horizon this coming Saturday. For the rest of the week, though, we still get October baseball, which is the best baseball, except for the series usually at hand. Okay, look, in the introduction, I talked about how the Yankees and Guardians has some potential, and I really was banking on the Dodgers and Mets to give me some sauce, give me some potential, give me some action, right? They have not been great. They have been, like I said, the Yankees versus Guardians have been filled with errors, and the Dodgers versus the Mets have been filled with blowouts. 3 games, 3 blowouts. It has been a yuck fest. The Yankees are going to send Clark Schmidt to the mound, and the Cleveland Guardians are going to send former Detroit Tiger Matthew Boyd, formerly the ace of that squad. He now finds himself in a spot needing to prolong this series. The Mets magic, can they keep it alive? I don't know. The Dodgers are inevitable, right? You know, they're snapping their fingers. They're inevitable. They're beginning to get on a little bit of a roll here. But we're going to talk about it. We got MLB action coming up for you. But first, let's take another break with Rose Hotel, an indie rock band out of Atlanta. I saw them open for Lunar Vacation about a month ago, and they carry that same sound, but maybe a little bit more toned down, but still easygoing and easy listening. So here is Fall in Love Again and Again by Rose Hotel on 98.7 Roar Radio, the student voice of Piedmont University.
In love again and again.
Welcome back into Eric on the Call. Your host, Eric Edmondson, here with you. Getting ready to talk about the MLB. Excuse me. Sorry, I had to take a break there for a minute. I'm a little congested if you can't tell. It's been a rough week over for my sinuses. Anyway, back to the task at hand, which is talking about October baseball, the best baseball. And let's start off with the American League. Start with the ALCS. Look, I've seen a lot of complaining online where people are saying, "Oh, the Yankees, they have such an easy path to the World Series. This is so easy for them." Look, it is an easy path. It really is. I won't lie. But then, I take a step back. I look at who's saying, "Oh, this is such an easy path." I go back, look at their account, whatever, and it's usually Orioles and Astros fans, or Yankees' main rivals. The Astros and the Orioles had an opportunity to stop this, but both of them got bounced in the first round. And as we all know, the Astros are the Yankees' kryptonite. So Houston, if you didn't want to see New York in this scenario, maybe you shouldn't have blown it to the Tigers, huh? Just a thought, right? Either way, this is a very easy pass for the Yankees. They set themselves up in a great spot. They didn't pick their opponent, right? They meticulously won games throughout the regular season to put themselves in the scenario. It's a great scenario. They beat the Royals, who were on a little bit of a Cinderella run, right? Royals maybe should not have been there, maybe not. And look, now they're facing the Guardians, who should be there, and I do think that they're one of the better Central Division champions you've seen in the past couple of years. I mean, look, the Guardians won it in 22, simply because no one else wanted to win the Central Division, right? But this year they had the Twins, they had the Royals gunning for them until, the Twins fell off a cliff, and then they gave their spot to the Tigers because, I don't know, they felt like it. I don't know. Maybe the Twins were just, White Sox merchants. They were. White Sox made it in somehow. That wasn't even in the outline. Oh, goodness. Either way, look, Yankees have an easy path, and I'm a big believer in them. I started really believing in New York around the summer when they were able to really hold the lead and batten down the hatches without Garrett Cole, right? This is a team that banked on Garrett Cole a lot the previous season. He won the Cy Young. This year, he was injured for a good bit of it, and he's coming back now, and he is very, very formidable. You got to watch out for Garrett Cole, and now Cleveland knows that. In October, too, it's how much pitching takes you. It's not necessarily about offense. It's about how big and bad a rotation can be, how hot a rotation can be, and how much and how deep is your bullpen. So that's really what it's all about. Now, when you couple that with a good explosive offense like the Yankees have with Juan Soto and Stanton being hot, Aaron Judge is now finally starting to wake up through October. He thinks he's haunted. There's ghosts all around him in October. It's a quote. He said that, right? But man, this Yankees team can be ridiculously strong and can be ridiculously fun, depending on which side of the aisle you're on. And the Guardians are going to come into this next game hanging on by a thread. Look, they're throwing Matthew Boyd out there. Matthew Boyd has had a very injury-ridden career. It's been a rocky road since he was 1 out shy of a no-hitter. He's been good in limited sample size, and the Yankees just have a 720 OPS against left-handers in the regular season. They have a 766 OPS against them in the playoffs, but that's only 57 OBs, remarkably small sample size. I think Boyd can get the job done tonight. I can also see a scenario where Boyd blows up. I really can. Look, this Guardians team came in, ironically enough, with the rotation not being the scariest part of the Cleveland team, right? Tristan McKenzie came in injured. We knew Shane Bieber was injured going into this year. It's really been Tanner Beebe and friends, whoever they can find to duct tape together with some popsicle sticks. It's been a rough rotation, but the real show has been in the bullpen. This is a very strong bullpen for the Guardians, but they've been exposed a little bit in the first couple games of this series because manager Stephen Vogt had to deploy them so quickly, especially in Game 2 when Alex Cobb could not give the Guardians what they needed in that game. It's going to come down, like I said, I think the bullpen's good, and I think Boyd can do it. They can hold the Yankees where they are, call it 3 runs, right? Let's say after 5 innings and Boyd's giving you 2 runs. You love that. You absolutely love that. And then you hand the ball to the bullpen. You pat him on the back, say, good job, thank you, go hit the showers, right? You're good. We got you. But you need the offense to wake up. This offense for the Guardians has been a little stunted. And I think it all starts with your highest paid player. Jose Ramirez has to get it going. He's hitting 167 with 2 bombs in the postseason. Look, there's 2 bombs, right? But 167, Jose Ramirez is not a power pop guy. He's a guy who wants to find contact. He's a guy who wants to get on base. That's the name of his game, and he just has not been able to do that in the postseason. I think a lot of this offense hinges on J-Ram being J-Ram. I like the Naylor brothers. Josh Naylor hasn't been able to get it going just yet. But, I mean, look, again, you're not pulling for those guys. You're pulling for your Steven Kwans. You're pulling for your Noels. You're pulling for J-Ram, right? And they just cannot get it going. Tonight, I said it. I think Boyd can do it. I think the offense for the Guardians can wake up. I would give the edge to the Guardians this evening. They're at home, too, in cold Cleveland. But I just don't see a path for the Guardians to make it to the World Series until they start shaping some things up. So, a very important game tonight. A very, very important game. I think the Yankees still have the edge in this series, but I do see a scenario where the Guardians can pull it out. A very slight one. It's like 99-1, right? In the NL, we have the Dodgers and the Mets, and man, oh man, this series is boring. It's just straight up boring. 3 games, 3 blowouts. I am disappointed at both sides. Can you give us more of a show, gentlemen? The closest game was Game 2, where the Mets scored all their runs in the early half of the game and then just petered off, and then the bullpen started allowing ticky-tacky runs along the way. But, I mean, look, that's not a close game. That's not a fun game. Coupled off with the fact that it was a 1 o'clock game in L.A., MLB, why are you letting that happen? Like, what's that scheduling about, guys? You're trying to grow the game, and you're going to put it in the middle of the afternoon? Whose decision was that? Who didn't fight the network executives enough for that? Speaking of network executives, you know how embarrassing it is for one of the greatest stages of your year, postseason baseball, the championships, the semifinal of the tournament. It's playing second fiddle to Ken Jeong and the Masked Singer on Fox. That's right. It wasn't on Fox. It was on FS1 last night. That's sad. Manfred rant aside. I could rant about Manfred for a long time. I'm not going to do it, though. Again, very boring. The Dodgers have had offensive woes, kind of. They've needed guys to step up, and that's exactly what you need in October. You need the rest of your lineup to do something. But their horses, their main guys, haven't been able to do anything. Mookie Betts had a good division series. He had an okay one. He hasn't done anything since. Freddie Freeman's playing through an injury, as Freddie Freeman usually does. I don't know why he does that. He did it in the 2019 NLDS with the Braves, and it messed them up because he was a hole in the lineup. He's a hole right now. And Shohei Ohtani has been terrible. with no one on base. I don't know what it is. Maybe with runners on base, MLB's feeding something to him. But, he's been a demon with it. Huge 3-run bomb last night well after the game was over. I'm not going to credit him too much with that, but he had that big 3-run game-shaping home run in that first game in the NLDS. Dave Roberts, if he's hitting with runners on base, maybe you move him down in the lineup, let Mookie Betts go back to leadoff. I don't know, just a thought. That simple lineup construction for me. The Dodgers are able to make it past the first round, and it seems like they've exercised some demons, right? The lineup is now beginning to click a little bit more. I'm not sure what was said in the clubhouse after that disastrous Game 3 for them in San Diego, but they've really started to roll. They're taking their pitches. They're not swinging too heavy out of the zone. And like I said, it's taken some guys stepping up. And the addition of Teoscar Hernandez has been massive for the Dodgers. They really need to consider bringing him back on a multi-year. Teoscar has been in big moment after big moment this year. He showed up in the DS, huge grand slam for him that basically put the game away and it eventually put the series away for LA. And he hasn't done a lot in this series just yet. He's had a couple of moments, but waiting for that signature moment from Teoscar Hernandez. You also want the signature moment from your big guys, but that top 4 is still very, very good. Max Muncy and playoff Kike Hernandez have carried the load. And look, we've said it before multiple times. I said it back in February when Shohei signed. You can't put all your eggs in one basket. You really can't. This was before the whole contract fiasco with Shohei. What the Dodgers did in bringing in Ohtani, signing Betts to that long-term extension, and bringing in Freddie, putting a lot of stock in the top-heavy lineup. And it's a great job by their hitters, and it's a great job by their front office to make sure that the people below them are still going to hit. I mentioned Teoscar Hernandez. I mentioned Max Muncy, playoff Kike Hernandez, because he's a different player in the playoffs, right? These are guys that you do need to fill out a roster because, again, baseball is not played with 1 or 3 guys. It's not basketball. You have to play your full 9, and all 9 have to contribute in some way. Moving to the Mets, they appear to be turning into a pumpkin, much like their newest rallying tool. Grimace from McDonald's can only take you so far. Sean Manaea has been the only one to show up out of the rotation, and Jose Quintana. Let me put that out there. Although he's only had a couple starts, not for a lot of innings. He'll get the ball tonight, and last time he stepped on the mound for the Mets, he took down the Phillies through 5 innings of 6 strikeout ball. He has a 0 ERA in the postseason. That's exactly what you need in October. You need the pitchers who are going to get hot randomly and really help you out. He's a left-hander, which might be able to chop through that top 3 pretty easily. You got Mookie, who's the right-hander. Freddie's usually good against left-handers as well, but again, he's on that injured ankle, so I don't know how far that's going to take him. And Shohei, of course, if he's batting leadoff, will be bad because he sucks with no runners on. I don't know why. And again, these are the type of pitching runs that you love. This is what you need to get hot. You need these from rotation guys. You need these from bullpen guys. I think there is a clear strategy for the Mets. You have to take it one game at a time, one batter, one inning at a time, because Dave Roberts is eventually going to overmanage his team. He's going to shoot himself in the foot. He does it every single year. He hasn't done it yet. But there will be a point in time where he does that, and it depends on how much advantage you're going to take from that scenario. Because Dave Roberts is a very flawed manager. I still don't think the Dodgers are going to win a World Series with him at the helm because I think he just overmanages the heck out of everything. And again, in October, you ride with your hot guys, and Dave Roberts has not done that. He goes towards the statistics a little bit too much. And in October, it's not so much about statistics. It is about luck. It's a lot of luck to get to October and to get deep into October. Tonight, I think Jose has another gem in him. Quintana has another gem in him somewhere. I think he'll do enough to get his job done. Maybe not keep that 0 ERA in the postseason type of job, but I think he'll do enough to get the job. On the other side, you got to score runs. Mets offense has been hot, but they've been hot and cold in this series. They dropped an egg in 2 games. Meanwhile, they hit that big grand slam with Mark Vientos in Game 2. You can't depend on Francisco Lindor and Mark Vientos a lot, though. They've done it in the NLDS. They are doing it right now. You need more from Pete Alonso and Francisco Alvarez. You just do. And, if they don't do it tonight, I'm starting to point fingers at them because they are the reason this team's losing. I mean, these are big offensive guys. And again, you can't depend on two people. Look at the Dodgers. Vientos has been great. Lindor's been great. Alvarez has been swinging out of his shoes on everything. And Pete Alonso has been the exact opposite of that. He has watched so many just waist-high fastballs just go in there at 94 miles an hour, and he's just waiting on it. Not sure what he's looking for, because it's certainly not a slider down and away, which he keeps striking out on. You need more moments from Pete. Of course, he had the big 3-run home run in the wild card round against the Brewers, but you just need more from Pete because that is a huge linchpin in your lineup. He's the guy, he's the glue, right? He transitions from the top of the order to the middle of the order. It's a hard job to do. Another guy that you're paying big money to, Brandon Nimmo, his bat has not been there, but he's been walking a lot, which is important. It's an important part of his game, so I'm not too worried about Brandon Nimmo. Tonight, again, I like Quintana. I think he's going to get his job done. I don't believe in this offense versus Yamamoto. Yoshinobu Yamamoto has been pretty good since coming back from an injury. He is running into a little bit of bad luck on the barrel end, though. I think he's just leaving too many things across the plate, which I think he can shape up either way. The pitching for the Mets needs to shorten this game. This bullpen's been used a lot, especially in Game 1 when Kodai Senga couldn't get it done against the Dodgers early on. He walked 6 people. That immediately started putting the bullpen tax on people. So can you shorten it off to get to Diaz, who has not been great in this playoff month, but I think his skill floor is still very, very high. So be sure you tune in throughout the week for more great October baseball, although I will be more interested in the ALCS than in the NLCS. Up next, we got a very clear view of the NFL this season over the past, I would say, 2 weeks. It's really rounding into form. The NFC North is the most powerful conference. What are the Jets up to? And the Dallas Cowboys. Oh, Dallas Cowboys. Where did we lose you? We got that coming up right after our next music break, featuring Magic Ways by Matcha Fever on 98.7 Roar Radio, the student voice of Piedmont University. Welcome back into Eric on the Call. Eric Edmondson, your host, here with you, getting ready for the final segment, but telling you a little bit about that artist coming out of our break. Again, that was Matcha Fever, Magic Ways by them. Minneapolis City Pop is what they call that. They are, of course, out of Minneapolis, but they give you that 80s feel, that kind of poppy, low, soft rock 80s feel. Pretty unique in this day and age of music. Go check them out. Again, that's Matcha Fever. So before we went into the break, we're talking about the NFL. We got the NFC North up on deck first, which the Vikings were in a bye week this week. They're top of the conference right now. They're top of the entire league. They're undefeated right now. The rest of the conference was in action, though. We'll start with the Chicago Bears. The Bears played against Jacksonville and beat them to improve to 4-2. Look, Jacksonville is not good. They are really, really not good. I understand that. But look, Williams has looked good. He's looked really good. He's shaped into the scheme a lot more. Of course, 35 points against Jacksonville. He's looking a lot better than in his first 3 weeks, which is what you hope for, rookie improvement, right? I definitely hung with Caleb Williams because I knew he was going to get put into a very tough scheme because the Bears O-line, it still doesn't exist. They've given him a little bit more time, but one of Williams' biggest problems coming out of college was that he holds the ball a lot. I think he's kind of released it a little bit more. I think he realizes how much time he has now, which I think Caleb Williams always has like a higher ceiling than Justin Fields did as an NFL QB. But, Caleb Williams looks good. And again, they beat Jacksonville. All 4 of the Bears' wins have not been against good teams at all. They've all been against bad teams. But look, all losses were just one-score losses. They were just one-scores. You could have won depending on what flips this way, right? The Bears, they're not coming into this season hoping for a Super Bowl. They're not coming to the season hoping for a championship game. They're coming into this season looking for improvement and maybe getting a shot to play in January again. And I think they're well on the way to doing that. They just need to keep finding themselves, keep finding an idea, and Caleb Williams needs to keep doing good, which he has been. So, good job. Good job by the Bears. Green Bay thrashed the Cardinals as expected. I don't really know what people expected out of the Cardinals this year. I mean, Kyler Murray healthy, I guess. Does that mean your team's going to be good? No, it doesn't. Kyler Murray is never like, an upper echelon QB. He's okay when he's healthy, but, he's not going to do this, that, and the other. You still got to build around him. So Arizona looks like your season's done if you don't pull off anything, quick. Then we get to Detroit and the Dallas game. Oh boy, the Lions. The Lions really kicked Dallas's butt in this one. This was a brutal loss for the Cowboys. Not that it really, meant anything a lot, but it's just like, man, when you lose by that score, it really sends alarm bells down the line, right? And I said it before at the top, Dallas is a one-dimensional team, both offensively and defensively. And hopefully, as an 82nd birthday present, Jerry Jones got a gift-wrapped wake-up call as his past 2 off seasons of being, quote-unquote, all in. They're not there. What are you in on, Jerry? What are you looking for? Re-signing Dak? Re-signing CD? Oh, are you going to sign Micah Parsons next to go all in? There needs to be some serious changes in Dallas because, again, this is a one-dimensional team. The defense has been bad for Dallas. And Detroit is not here to play around with you. They see you as a top team. They see you as a contender. They're going to play you like a contender. And they did. They were merciless. And there was a point where they started making fun of Dallas. Who runs a hook and ladder play up that much? They're making fun of the Cowboys on the field. And the Cowboys couldn't do anything about it. A one-dimensional team when Dak is not doing good. That means you're a bad team. That means you are a bad team. The Cowboys have some serious questions to think about during this bye week for them. I don't know. I don't know what the future holds for this Dallas team because under Jerry Jones, it's going to be the same exact thing over and over and over again. Circling back to the Lions, they, of course, looked great. They do have a big test against the Vikings this Sunday in the 4 o'clock slot. With Minnesota coming off the bye week, Detroit's coming in hot off of a high-scoring win. That'll be an interesting one. I don't know how long Minnesota can stay undefeated because I just don't think they're undefeated good. So we'll see. And Sam Darnold regression has to come eventually because if Sam Darnold was like this good, which we did see his first bad game a couple weeks ago, but if he was this good, he wouldn't have been a backup in the first place with Minnesota, right? Excuse me. The Jets and the Bills faced off, and both came away thinking that they both need to trade for wide receivers. So they did. The Jets land Devontae Adams, which everyone and their mother saw coming, and the Bills got Amari Cooper on an expiring deal. Look, I like Amari Cooper for Buffalo a lot. They got rid of a couple wideouts in the offseason, mainly Stephon Diggs, who is now in Houston with C.J. Stroud. But you got rid of them, right? So coming into this year, you weren't proven and you weren't expecting a lot out of those wideouts, and I'm still not expecting a lot. Getting Amari Cooper here, I think, solidifies that a little bit. Josh Allen has that weird streakiness where they're like, okay, in this section of the year, they'll be good, they'll be fine. And again, they're Super Bowl contenders. They're not just perennial playoff contenders, they're Super Bowl contenders. And I hope that we do see a Lombardi out of them. Could it be this year? Maybe. They got the explosivity to do it. It's just a matter of can the pieces click together, and Amari Cooper very well may be that last missing piece for this offense to really click. The Jets got Devontae Adams. I guess, the offense and the team of the Jets lives and dies with Aaron Rodgers. And when Aaron Rodgers wasn't happy that the receivers were running the routes that he wanted to for the past couple weeks, of course there was going to be a change. No matter how much the GM says that maybe Aaron Rodgers is in control, well, if Aaron's not happy, your team's not going to do good, right? And I still don't think that Devontae Adams is going to be a game changer for the Jets, right? They have so many problems, not just on field, but internally. The coaching, of course, the firing of Robert Saleh, which I didn't even mention until just now. They're in kind of, they're not in free fall, but they're definitely holding on to some roots that are slowly beginning to fall out of some loose dirt, right? They're still falling, but they're looking for something to grab hold of. So the Jets definitely looking for something more from them, and they get Devontae Adams to see if they can do something more. This week, you got Houston versus Green Bay. That's going to be a fun one. Jordan Love has really returned to form. I'm not worried about him anymore. And, C.J. Stroud has been good. He's been going through a little bit of a sophomore slump with Houston. He's still been good, but nowhere as near as good as he was last year. So that'll be a group of fun offenses to watch. Then we have the Chiefs versus the 49ers, which is going to be a Super Bowl rematch. This won't be as fun as I think it's being billed as, right? I mean, the Chiefs, they're still in the receiver market. They're a very boring offense to watch, but they're getting the job done. They're still undefeated. I'm not sure why I call the Vikings the only undefeated. The Chiefs are still there as well. Pardon that from me. But the 49ers are really injured, man. They are really injured right now. They're signing just random people to come play positions. But Brock Purdy's been able to get through it all. I mean, Brock Purdy's a soldier for putting up through a lot of this. And that's going to be an okay matchup. I think the offenses they should bring out the best in one another, especially with Travis Kelce beginning to play a little bit better on the Chiefs side. But it's a toss-up, right? It's in San Francisco. The 49ers might be able to win. They might be able to sneak one over. I mean, the Chiefs have been kind of playing with fire for the entirety of this season, right? Eventually, the Jenga tower is going to topple. Will it be this week? I'm not as certain. So I just don't know where that's going to wind up. That's going to be in prime time on Sunday. It'll still be a good watch, still be a good football game. Baltimore will face the Bucs. That's going to be a pretty good one. High-flying offense. I do expect Baltimore to come out with this one. Not because I don't believe in the Bucs. I do think that they're up there with the Falcons, with the best team in the NFC South. But Baltimore, Derrick Henry's on a rampage, man. He is out of control. You cannot stop him. And he's really shown why they went out and got him, and especially since they figured out how to give Derrick Henry the ball. They've done it. They've cracked the code. Baltimore looks great. The Bucs also didn't look fantastic last week. I mean, they came out with a win, but I mean, Baker Mayfield's been throwing a lot of interceptions lately. I don't think that's going to continue necessarily, but I mean, Baker is a very volatile QB. He can give you this, he can give you that. He can be an MVP candidate one day and be a backup the next, right? I do think he's a little bit better. He's a little bit more comfortable in the Buccaneers system, which is why we haven't seen the bad Baker cycle in a couple months. But again, he's got to ease up on the picks. And then Thursday Night Football this evening, it is Denver at New Orleans. Oh, man. New Orleans should win this game. They really should, but I'm not so sure. I mean, they're 0-5 since they're 0-5 or 0-4 since the start of since a hot start to the season. I don't know what to expect out of them, right? Because they looked really good. They looked dangerous in those first couple weeks. Derek Carr looked great. Of course, Derek Carr is not going to be on this team come tonight because Spencer Rattler is going to be playing for him, right? Carr's still on the bench, still mending. So Spencer Rattler gets his second start, and he's playing against another good defense. He didn't fare great against the Bucs defense, and I do think that, Denver, if anything, the Broncos have a good defense, right? They don't have a good offense because Bo Pick sucks, but they do have a good defense. And Bo Nix will continue to be bad because he's bad. Look, he started 63 college games, and he's not going to improve from there. Look, what you get is what you get. So, Bo, salute to you. Hang on, man. It's going to be a tough one for you. Saints are looking to avoid being 0-5 since the red hot start, a.k.a. they got exposed. And a lot of people were expecting a lot from this New Orleans team after that. I don't really know why. I mean, the whole team can be good. They can be good on a flip of a coin, and they have not been good. I mean, we saw that, when the offense is running hot, we saw the highs that it went up against. But again, they were facing Carolina. They faced Carolina at the start of the season. I mean, anybody's going to look good against Carolina. Heck, the Falcons got their first 2-score win of the season against Carolina. The Panthers suck. It's just the way it is. So, New Orleans should win this one. I'm not as confident, though. We're going to take another break, and when we come back, we'll get you out of here with some news and notes. Taking us into that break is Houndmouth with Sedona on 98.7 Roar Radio, the student voice of Piedmont University.
Saturday night kind of pain.
Welcome back into Eric on the Call. Eric Evanson, your host here with you. Getting ready to get you out of here and send you off to the weekend with some news and notes. The NBA is starting to go. The preseason is underway. Lonzo Ball is set to return after 2 years of missed time to the Bulls. So watch out for Lonzo. And the Bulls, the Bulls should be okay this year. I'm not, terribly bullish on the Bulls, right? But I think they're going to be pretty good. Chicago has a decent runner. And, of course, they did sell off oh, goodness gracious. They did sell off big piece. They got Josh Giddey back, which I'm not a big fan of Josh Giddey. But, they shouldn't be bad this year. Play-in team once again. And mentioned Paul George coming back. Paul George was coming back to Philadelphia, looking to run, looking to do well. And, bam, Paul George is injured. Hyperextended knee. He's already done. I don't know for how long, but man, oh man, Philly just can't catch a break. They got a bad head coach. They got a bad baseball team, and now Paul George got a bad knee, and of course you got Embiid with the bad legs. Sorry, Philly. It sucks for you. Then we have Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard, he's going to be done for the rest of the preseason. His knee is also bothering him. The Clippers, I'm not really sure what the Clippers are looking for here because they did collapse so heavy last year. Gonna be rough for them again this year, I would say. So NBA preseason underway. We'll have more NBA content as the season gets a little bit closer. In the WNBA, Sabrina Ionescu and Stewie go off as they continue that series. They move one win closer to a championship. Good for them. That was a really fun game to watch, especially with Ionescu's logo shot. Man, that was huge. So big spot for them. In the CFB, Army and Navy, for the first time, they are both undefeated and both are ranked. Man, look at that. Good job, Army and Navy. I got a buddy who is a big Army fan, obviously. He was in the Army and the military. So he thinks that they're going all the way this year. I don't know how much I can support him in that endeavor. But you know what? I'll be pulling for him when the time comes just to root for my buddy. Then you have something that wasn't necessarily newsworthy, but I thought the press conference was very funny, so I'm going to mention it. Jackson Dart looked like Anakin Skywalker about to march up the steps to the Jedi Temple in his post-game press conference after Ole Miss lost to LSU. Man, he looked dark. He was bewildered on what happened. Well, Jackson, let me tell you what happened. You played against a better opponent. You've been playing against Nobody University, and you finally ran into LSU, who aren't like a fantastic team, but you got hit in the mouth. That's exactly what happened. It happens every single year with Ole Miss where they think they're good, and then they play one good opponent, and their season tumbles. Happens every single year. Nothing is going to change here for you, Ole Miss. Let's not pretend that it is going to. Mention the NFL just to round it up. Devontae Adams traded to the Jets. Then you had Amari Cooper to the Bills. And some other news in that. I think it's time for Cleveland to give Jameis Winston the ball. I think it's just time. You can't afford too much more with Watson at the helm, which of course they're going to. They're going to. The GM is going to keep doing it because, the owner's forcing him to continue to make his decision look good or try to look good because they paid so much money to trade for this guy, Deshaun Watson, and he comes with so much baggage and he comes with so much of just no talent on the field. So I do see that continuing. Some games to watch. Of course, we have the AL and the NLCS kicking off this evening, but you also have Denver at the Saints on Thursday Night Football. Be on the lookout for that. Mentioned a couple of NFL games that I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on, such as Houston and Green Bay, the Chiefs at the 49ers, and Baltimore at the Buccaneers. In the CFB, it's a big game everybody's been waiting on. Texas versus Georgia, prime time on Saturday night. So make sure you're tuning into that one. Well, I think it is about time that I head on out of here. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Eric on the Call. Make sure you tune in on 98.7 Roar Radio for more stuff, starting off tomorrow morning with She Means Business, and then with Jarrett Ray, J-Ray's Back in the Day. Keeping us going there. We also got some Radio 1 radio shows to keep us company there. Make sure you have a good weekend, make good decisions, stay safe. Make sure you tell a friend, tell a family member, tell a frenemy. Let them know Eric's on the call. Again, stay safe, everybody. Have a great weekend. Watch sports. And as always, have a good one.